start without her. All right. All right, welcome to Salt Lake City Council formal meeting. It's October 4th. It's October 4th, 2022. It's 7 o'clock. Thank you for being here. And to keep everyone healthy and safe, we continue to host hybrid meetings. And our meetings are public, and you're welcome to join us in person or by watching from the council's agenda page, Facebook, YouTube, or SLC TV. We hope you'll continue to join us in whichever manner you feel most comfortable. If you're here to give public comment and are wearing a mask, feel free to remove it once you get called to address the council the council from the podium. Thank you for your participation today. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you again for everybody that is joining us tonight. If you'd like to give public comment today, we're accepting comments in person, online, on WebEx, and via telephone for those whose only option is to call in. Before we begin moving through our agenda, I want to mention and review our rules of the quorum. The City Council has always had guidelines in place to ensure our meetings are orderly, civil, and efficient. The guidelines help everyone feel comfortable sharing their comments without feeling intimidated. To achieve this, our rules of the quorum take effect the moment you arrive. We respect all points of view and welcome new insights. Please be respectful while sharing your comments. Avoid yelling, using profanity, making racial slurs, or obscene or defamatory remarks. If you violate this rule, we will mute your line or will ask you to stop. If you feel the need to use such language to express your opinion, you may email council members or leave a message on our 24-hour comment line. Additionally, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of the quorum. If your name doesn't comply, our staff will let you know. For those joining on WebEx, please watch your chat window in case we try to reach you. Isaac Canedo from our staff will moderate our WebEx and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks, so please limit your messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. If you would like to send any comment, feel free to do so to P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. Email us at council.comments@slcgov.com or call us at 801-535-7654. We're moving on to next, and it's item A4, which is to approve the formal meeting minutes of July 19th, 2022. So I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the formal meeting minutes of July 19th, 2022.
Second.
Close second. I have a motion from Councilmember Fowler and seconded by Councilmember. Wow, I'm getting old. Dugan.
I'm old.
Is there any other discussion? No, seeing none, I'm gonna roll call this. And Petro Eschler,
yes.
Dugan,
Yes.
Wharton,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Mano,
Yes.
Hui.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes. This brings us to item A5 regarding a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall declaring the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City. And I will turn the time over to Councilmember Amy Fowler to read the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joint resolution declaring the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City. Whereas Salt Lake City recognized this city is built upon the homelands of the indigenous peoples of this region, whose histories are entwined with the settlement of Salt Lake City. And whereas Salt Lake City values indigenous peoples' contributions to our community, including their knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural influence that substantially shaped the character of Salt Lake City. And whereas Salt Lake City has a responsibility to oppose the systemic discrimination towards indigenous people in the United States, which perpetuates high rates of poverty and income inequality, exacerbating disproportionate health, education, and social crisis. And whereas Salt Lake City promotes closing the equity gap for indigenous peoples by supporting policies and practices that ensure broader access, resources, and opportunity for these communities, and by honoring our nation's indigenous roots, history, and contributions. And whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations sponsored International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in the Americas, and whereas Salt Lake City established its Human Rights Commission in 2005, committing itself to protect, respect, and fulfill the full range of inherent human rights for all as set forth in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and numerous other international human rights treaties. And whereas indigenous communities and tribes in Utah called upon the city to officially recognize the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day and celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day to promote understanding and friendship and to combat prejudice and eliminate discrimination stemming from colonization. Now, therefore be it resolved. The Salt Lake City Council and the Mayor of Salt Lake City strongly support that Indigenous Peoples Day shall be an opportunity to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the indigenous peoples of our region. Be it further resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City strongly encourage Salt Lake City public schools to teach about the culture, government, and history of indigenous peoples on this day and encourage residents, businesses, organizations, and public institutions to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. Be it further resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City firmly commit to continue efforts to promote the well-being and growth of Salt Lake City's American Indian and Indigenous community, and declares the second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day in Salt Lake City.
Thank you, Amy. Councilmember Fowler, I look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move that we adopt the resolution.
Right, do I have a second? Right, so it's been moved by Councilmember Fowler and seconded by Councilmember Petro. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call this. Councilmember Petro Eschler,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Councilmember Mano,
Yes.
Councilmember Pui, Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
Yep, thank you. So that motion passes. And so we have joining us Samantha Eldridge, Director of the Native American Resource Center at the University of Utah. Samantha, are you here? Oh, there you go. So we welcome you along with your students. Would you like to introduce your students and speak to the resolution? All right, please come over. Take a seat.
Sorry, we have folks on the other side. We just want to thank Mayor Mendenhall, Salt Lake City Council, and our coalition of leaders joining us today. This upcoming Monday, Salt Lake City and numerous states, cities, and campuses across the U.S. will be honoring Indigenous Peoples Day. This is not only a holiday to recognize the original stewards of the land, but this is a day that honors our culture, our history, and our identity as Indigenous people. Moving forward, we invite you all to find ways to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, not only on Monday, but every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we, Madam Chair, can we do a picture?
Yes, we're doing a picture with you guys, if that's okay. Are we going outside?
Right here, they have people who are over there, so we need to get everybody in one place, whichever place.
We can walk
You're-
over
Can
there.
you just get him to come back? Is that okay, or do you want to go there?
That's fine. All right. Yeah, let's stand up and. Is this?
Everyone for your patience. I know it takes time out of your schedule.
Hi, this is for you guys. Nice to see you. This is the resolution. That's the official resolution.
And I'm going to come here and do just one more. Awesome. 1, 2, oh, nope. I have a couple minutes. Ashley, sorry. You got us. Come on, you got a good people. Good. All right. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. All right, let's just go around.
All right. Well, thank you for your patience. We are at item A6 regarding another joint resolution with Mayor Mendenhall supporting a phased, lower-impact adaptive approach to the Utah Department of Transportation's Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement and opposing the gondola alternative. Now we'll turn the time to Councilmember Dan Dugan to read the resolution.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. A resolution supporting a phased, lower-impact adaptive approach to the Utah Department of Transportation's Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Statement. Whereas the Little Cottonwood Creek watershed is a critical water supply for more than 450,000 people in Salt Lake County, and whereas for more than a century, residents of Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County have invested significant financial and other resources to the stewardship and protection of the Little Cottonwood Creek watershed, ensuring clean and reliable drinking water to the public. And whereas in the midst of drought, climate change, and population growth, water resources must be protected now more than ever. And whereas the Utah Department of Transportation, UDOT, has been conducting an environmental impact statement, EIS, related to transportation alternatives for the State Route 210 from the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon to the upper reaches of the Little Cottonwood Creek watershed for the last several years. That's called the LCC EIS. And whereas Salt Lake City has served as a cooperating agency for the LCC EIS and has invested hundreds of hours to the LCC EIS process since its inception. And whereas UDOT recently issued a final EIS in which it identified a gondola alternative with proposed phasing as a preferred alternative to improve transportation in LCC, and is conducting a 45-day comment period for the final EIS prior to issuing a record of decision. And whereas the gondola has a very high cost to taxpayers, with at least $550 million in construction costs, serves only 2 private ski resorts, creates an additional transportation corridor to the existing road, introduces additional water resource risks, and is fixed industrial infrastructure with limited flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances. And whereas the LCC EIS failed to effectively consider many of the additional water resources risks raised by Salt Lake City during the LCC EIS process, including the risks associated with construction and operations of the gondola, as well as the risks associated with increased visitation to the watershed, because the gondola is not shown to reduce the number of personal vehicles per hour in the peak period over other alternatives evaluated, and will increase overall visitation capacity. And whereas because the LCC EIS failed to consider the additional water resource risks, the mitigation of and the cost associated with these risks was not identified, potentially unfairly shifting future unevaluated financial and social water costs to the public. And whereas lower impact, highly adaptive approaches were not effectively evaluated, such as a multifaceted approach that could include strategies like tolling, electric buses, parking management, regional mobility hubs, and carpool incentives. And whereas the Salt Lake City Council and the Salt Lake City Mayor wish to communicate their position on the proposed gondola alternative in the final LCC EIS. Now therefore be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and the Mayor of Salt Lake City recommend removing the gondola alternative from consideration in the record of decision. Be it further resolved, the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City support UDOT in implementing a lower impact adaptive approach to addressing transportation issues in Little Cottonwood Canyon, offering our collaboration while ensuring protection of the Little Cottonwood Canyon watershed and water resources. I turn the time over.
Thank you, Councilmember Dugan. I look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt this resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Dugan and seconded by Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call this. Councilmember Petro,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton,
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler,
Yes.
Councilmember Mano,
Yes.
Councilmember Pui,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So this motion passes. All right. Thanks for doing that. I was confused by
Thank you. A viewer was confused, so.
Now we will begin our public hearings. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We will call names of people on WebEx and in person based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so people can have some notice and prepare to speak. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name, and if you're on WebEx, your line will unmute and you may begin. If you're here in person, please step up to that podium to make your comment once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and your 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is available in the meeting room and in the WebEx chat. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, let us know you're here to listen. Our first public hearing combines items B1 through B4 to be heard as one public hearing for the following grant applications. Item B1 is the 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant. Item B2 is application 2022 for the Utah Railroad Safety Grant, railroad crossing at 4900 West and 700 South. Item B3 is 2022-23 Child and Adult Care Food Program Youth City Snacks Grant. Item B4 is grant 2022 Urban Sustainability Directors Network Emergent Learning Fund Grant. Before we begin taking your comments, I will first turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give us a short introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, there are 4 grants, as you mentioned, First is the 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, which will fund travel and training for sworn in civilian staff, ballistic helmets, ballistic computers, rifle shields, e-bikes, community policing and enforcement overtime, vehicle analytics software and training, promising youth project training, community surveys and subawards to Salt Lake County and Unified Police Department. Second is the 2022 Utah Railroad Safety Grant, which will fund safety improvements to the Union Pacific Railroad crossing at 4900 West, 700 South, as part of the reconstruction of 700 South between 5000 West to 4725 West. Third is the 2023 Child and Adult Care Food Program, which will fund the purchase of snacks for youth city participants during the 2022-23 school year. Last is the 2022 Urban Sustainability Directors Network Emergent Learning Fund Grant, which will fund consultant services and equity-focused community-based organization participation for the Spring 2023 Western Adaptation Alliance Conference. Again, these are items the city has applied for to fund city programs and projects. And that is all tonight. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like there are 2 people here to speak to these items. The first will be George Chapman, followed by Allison Lewis. George, you're unmuted.
Okay, this is about the Edward Byrne Memorial Grant. The grant should go to Ballpark and North Temple Walking Police Patrols, not for travel or for training or for anyone to travel for training or equipment like ballistic helmets, ballistic computers, rifle shields, or e-bikes or software or surveys. The public needs and wants walking police patrols. That is what real community policing is, walking the neighborhood and engaging with everyone and getting to know the problems of the neighborhood. It takes a walking police patrol, not travel or training or equipment like ballistic helmets or ballistic computers or rifle shields. I mean, who are we planning to fight? Russia? Just say we need to fund walking police patrols for this grant. Thank you for listening.
And Allison Lewis would like to comment on a different item, and the next person for this item will be Levi Woodruff. Levi, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I also would like to speak specifically to item B1, the Edward Byrne Memorial Grant. I actually concur with Mr. Chapman that what is not needed to improve public safety in Salt Lake City right now is additional funding for more equipment. I would urge that if the city wants to invest in public safety and in helping vulnerable citizens, that we should instead pursue mental health related grants. For example, the mental health awareness training that was part of a new grant package announced by HHS on September 1st. But in any case, I feel that additional equipment won't make either police or civilians safer. What is really needed is assistance to vulnerable community members experiencing mental health crises. Thank you very much.
And that was the final commenter for this item.
All right, well, thank you for those comments. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer items B1 through B4 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Dugan and seconded by Councilmember Fowler. Any other discussion? No? I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Petro?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Pui?
Yes.
I'm a yes, and that motion passes. Our second public hearing, item B5, is regarding an ordinance of the Ballpark Station Area Plan. Before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over to Allison Rowland, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
Good afternoon, good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you. The council is receiving public comment tonight on an ordinance that would adopt the Ballpark Station Area Plan. The station area plan is intended to set a framework, to help guide growth-related issues and capitalize on the ballpark as the neighborhood's central public asset. The Ballpark Station Area Plan will encompass the area that runs roughly between 900 South to 1700 South and State Street to I-15. The small area plan's boundaries are within both the Central Community Master Plan and the Downtown Master. Thanks.
Thank you, Allison. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like there are 4 people here to speak to this item. The first will be John Dickman, followed by George Chapman, and then Amy Hawkins. John, you are unmuted. Okay, we'll move on to George Chapman. George, you are now unmuted.
Okay, I believe that most ballpark residents are against this plan due to the lack of public safety attention and ignoring neighborhood character and inadequate pedestrian safe bicycling paths. Ignoring constant vandalism discourages walkability. Broken windows discourage walkability, and this city has promoted the broken windows policy for policing. Why not here? Ballpark residents want alleyways closed. The city can provide adequate public safety. Alleyways should be closed. Skinny sidewalks discourage walkability, but this council approved Colony B, which actually made the sidewalk skinnier and unwalkable, actually. High buildings close to sidewalks ice up and also discourage walking and biking. And 8 to 10-story buildings next to single-family homes destroy the neighborhood, especially with inadequate parking. And we once stopped watering trees in the past in medians, but we're putting median and street trees in a drought, which encourages wasting water. So we don't have parking on 13 South. Why do we need park strips? And street furniture and trees block bicyclists. And cycle tracks are dangerous with a lot of driveways since they limit maneuvers, and converting parking to buildings discourage transit use according to transit studies. And parking is inadequate in the area. TSA area is bad. So I'm against the dangerous crosswalk across 13 South, especially without a light. It's criminal, and it should be on the west side because that's where people cross. If buses stop on 13 South, they should have a turnout, or they'll end up with congestion like Chickafield, and that should be the policy throughout Salt Lake City. And if you want to mitigate gentrification, open up the west.
Next, we will hear from Amy Hawkins, who is in person to speak.
Hello. As chair of the Ballpark Community Council and a former member of the Ballpark Area Plan Steering Committee, first, I would like to applaud many of the big moves identified in the plan that will help transform the Ballpark neighborhood and guide growth in the area. However, we ask for 2 major revisions to the plan. First is that public safety be made into a criterion moving forward for all building and planning proposals within the Ballpark neighborhood. Currently, the plan states that although addressing policing and safety are not part of the scope of this plan, the success of many of the recommendations in the plan depend on the perceived and actual safety of pedestrians. Document that cannot avoiding the critical issues. Issues facing the park neighborhood. A planning document should, by definition, make these primary considerations in guiding development of choices. We challenge the city to consider what incentives could the city create such that the property owners in the ballpark.
Amy, one moment. We can't hear you very well, so we're going to start the clock at whatever you stopped about 15, 20 seconds ago. But it's really hard to understand and to get the records straight. Yeah,
that
we'll
back
give you the
and then to it more.
2 full minutes because it was really hard to hear you. So you can start over from scratch or whatever you'd like to start again. We'll give you the 2 minutes.
It's going to sound a lot like the first time.
It's up to you. We want to make sure that we get the record straight as we
No,
record.
thank you,
your
Councilmember
words.
Valdemars. All right, as chair of the Ballpark Community Council and a former member of the Ballpark Area Plan Steering Committee, I would first like to applaud many of the big moves identified in the plan that will help transform the Ballpark neighborhood and guide growth in the area. However, we ask for 2 major revisions to the plan. First is that public safety be made into a criterion moving forward for all building and planning proposals within the Ballpark neighborhood. Currently, the plan states that although addressing policing and safety is not part of the scope of this plan, the success of many of the recommendations in this plan depend on perceived and actual safety of pedestrians and bicycle connections, public open space and plazas, and community events and activities. While it's useful to define the scope and purpose of any given document, that cannot be a pretext for avoiding critical issues. Crime and public safety are the most critical issues facing the Ballpark neighborhood. A planning document should, by definition, make these primary considerations in guiding development choices and land use in the Ballpark community. We challenge the city, therefore, to consider what incentives could the city create so that property owners in Ballpark, particularly those who manage properties around 1300 South, would be encouraged to run safe, law-abiding businesses. Further, we look to Jane Jacobs' insights when we ask planners to consider a Ballpark station area plan that, rather than valuing mere housing density around fixed rail transit, looks for opportunities to create more neighborhood stakeholders. The second major revision asks for an acknowledgement of tree equity, that the Ballpark Station Area Plan explicitly note the current discrepancy for the Ballpark neighborhood in the Salt Lake City's urban forestry canopy and propose methods to remedy that inequity. Measuring the world can render us helpless, or it can show us how to help. I would love for this document to do exactly that. Thank you for your time.
And that was the final person registered to comment for this item.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Hey, Madam Chair, someone in the audience is raising their hand.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, we would love to comment if possible. We didn't see what we could.
On this item? Okay. Yes. Yeah.
We need a staff member in the room to come and help gather cards.
Cindy's coming. So we'll redo the motion after this comment.
Hello, I'm Justin Wise. I'm the Director of Programs for the Front Climbing Club, and I do not have something as phenomenally rehearsed as that. That was very well done. But I would like to advocate on behalf of the Ballpark proposal. We run a climbing gym that also provides yoga and fitness and a lot of events, and it's something that we like to call a lifestyle gym. We have a cafe there, we have a courtyard, there's a lot of active involvement from the community and from the Salt Lake base. We have on average about 1,000 check-ins to our facility on a regular basis, and we're located at 1470 South 400 West, so we're actually just outside of where this proposal is. But we regularly have a large portion of our member base commuting from downtown and biking to the facility on a regular basis. So we would love to see this go through. I think this would be a huge benefit to making that area not only more walkable for our member base, but also to pull from some of the traffic around the ballpark into our local business that serves the Salt Lake area, and additionally providing areas for our member base to experience the ballpark and some some of the downtown area, and having that be more developed would be massively beneficial to us. So the only revision that I would like to suggest actually is that we could increase where the distance of some of those walkways and the bike paths past the 300 block to the 400 West block as well, so that we could create a sustainable way for our member base to be actively engaging with the ballpark. They're already consistently commuting via bike. We have a lot of different bike partnership programs that we do. We have a bike prom that we hosted with 400 plus attendees. We have very strong advocacy for biking to the gym over taking cars. And in terms of sustainability for Salt Lake, that's a huge thing that we'd like to continue to support, and more bike lanes would be fantastic for that. So thank you guys for your work. We would love to see this go through.
Right.
And we had one additional person turn in a comment card to speak.
Okay.
That will be Maddie Course.
Is this on Taylor? Is this online or a comment card in person?
It was an in-person comment card.
It's who we just heard from. All right. So then that will be it for comments, unless somebody else from the public wants to comment on this item, ballpark. Okay. Seeing none.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the council close the public hearing and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Councilmember Petro. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Petro,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Wharton,
Yes.
Fowler,
Yes.
Mano,
Yes.
Puy,
Yes.
Name, yes, and that motion passes. All right, our next public hearing combines items 6 and 7 regarding the Other Side Village to be heard as one public hearing. Item B6 is a resolution, the Other Side Village Pilot Project at 1850 West Indiana Avenue, public benefits analysis, and a resolution to authorize the lease rate and terms. And item B7, an ordinance is rezoning to facilitate development of the Other Side Village at 1850 West Indiana Avenue. Before we begin taking comments, I will first turn the time over again to Allison Rowland, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give a short introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The council is considering whether to lease portions of the properties at 1850 West Indiana Avenue and 1965 West 500 South for 40 years at a $1 per year rent to the Other Side Academy, also known as TOSA. TOSA has agreed to pay for all costs to remediate the site and for the development and operation of the Other Side Village pilot project. The public benefits analysis identified additional benefits to the pilot project, including a new model for supporting people experiencing homelessness, including case management, 54 new housing units for households with incomes below 30% of area median income, or AMI, which equates to about $21,510 per year for a single person, the activation of a currently vacant property, and others. Any future request to lease additional city properties for less than fair market value would be submitted to the council and include a supplemental public benefits analysis. The proposed zoning amendment would change the zoning designation on portions of the properties at the same address from public lands to FBUN2, or form-based urban neighborhood. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thanks, Madam Chair. There are 34 people here to speak to this item. The first will be Eric Lopez, followed by Joey Buckin, and then Scott Howell. Eric, you're unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, good. Excellent. Thank you. So I wanted to show my support for the Other Side Village. When I used to be the chair of the Poplar Grove Community Council, they were a great partner to work with, super transparent, and were open in discussing the various needs, wants, concerns of the community. And ever since then, I've been following the project, even though I don't live in Poplar Grove anymore. I've been following the project with rapt attention to make sure that it kind of goes through. I think it's going to be a big boon for the community, and I also think it's going to help us address some of the issues that we have in terms of homelessness, in terms of helping people get on their feet, and in creating a better community space. So I just want to kind of throw my support out for it and really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Joey Buchan, followed by Scott Howell, and then Tiffany Price.
One of the owners of Denton House Design Studio. We we do landscape planning. We also do residential design, and I can tell you, when I heard that Mr. Joe Grenny and the mayor were considering this project, we wholeheartedly stood behind this and wanted to encourage the council members to continue to support this project. And it offers hope, it offers a sense of community, and it is a way to cure a blight that affects all of us in one way or another, whether it's cost, whether it's personal knowledge, personal experience with maybe family members or friends who have gone through this. I feel as a society and that we have a responsibility, and it is going to be upon us to help cure this. And I know that all of us have seen what the Other Side Academy has done. They are a positive influence in many people's lives, and they take their role seriously in doing what they feel is best for the community. And I want to express our support for that. As a side note, when we asked members of our company to come and work for this on a pro bono basis, it was overwhelmingly accepted and supported by all of our company employees to go and do this work. There is community support. There is also commercial corporation support, and I want to extend my congratulations to the work that has already been done so far, and let's see this thing through to the finish line and continue offering those people who need hope, the hope that they can perform and be a positive influence and return back to the community. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Scott Howell, followed by Tiffany Price, and then Dave Dusher.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to speak, and thank you, council members, for your service. Access to a robust, high-quality mental health care and social work is at the heart of our TOSA Village model. In fact, the village already has partnerships with major health care and social service providers like Valley Behavioral Health, 4th Street Clinic, and Intermountain Healthcare. One of the foundational goals of the village is to create ease of access to these essential services for all those that will be living there. TOSA organization has an extraordinary amount of experience dealing with homelessness at almost every level of the problem. Child homelessness, drug addiction, disabled veterans, mentally challenged homeless. We also understand our limitations when it comes to the most severe mental health challenges, which is why we have built partnerships with experts and providers in those very areas into the heart of the model. The success of TOSA Village depends on a healthy, reciprocal partnership with our neighboring communities. Not only can we not expect it if we fail to improve the community, our social and financial models are based on that being of a desirable destination for our prospective neighbors, customers, and friends. That's why we've invested so heavily and for so long into outreach partnerships, because if we don't appeal to our neighbors, we might not as well build the village. Compassion is at the heart and soul of what TOSA and the village are modeling their program at this very time. How can we ever think that allowing people to sleep on the street, wallow in their own defecation and urination, going through garbage bins for food, when we're having people stop by and throwing them sandwiches, is compassion? If it was your child that was in that situation, let me tell you, I would want them in a village in a small home versus being on the street. I believe that tough love.
Next, we'll hear from Tiffany Price, followed by Dave Durocher, and then David Dixon. Tiffany, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you, and thank you to the council. I've had experience with TOSA since they came to Salt Lake City, and I've toured many homeless service providers and other facilities. And what I've seen over the years is TOSA actually does what so many other service providers promise to do. And what they're going to do with the tiny home village is do what we actually always intended with permanent supportive housing, safety and security, and giving people a chance for dignity and to have as much self-sufficiency as they possibly can. And the thing I've loved about TOSA that I'll always say, and what should reassure neighbors, is that they manage their property. They manage the people, and they control the situation and make it, they're concerned about the community. And I just want to use the rest of my time to go back to Amy Hawkins a little bit to contrast this with the ballpark and the safety and security needs that are needed there, because we have the opposite situation going down there. And so what I'd say to this community and to the council is that we want more operators like TOSA, people who care not only about the homeless, but also about the community and also running a good operation. And I'm in full support of this.
Next, we will hear from Dave Durocher, followed by David Dixon, and then Tony Allerton. Dave is in person to speak.
Thank you, Council. My name is Dave Durocher. I'm the Executive Director with the Other Side Academy. At our last hearing, I heard a lot of the opposition, and they were concerned about the safety of the property, the safety of the village. And over the past 7 years at the Other Side Academy, we haven't had a single call to the police department, not one. We currently have 140 people living on property. Our average student's been arrested over 25 times. I want that to sink in. Long-term drug addicts coupled with the criminal piece living on property. We have never given a dirty drug test to adult parole and probation. Our probation officer's name is Carl North. Never have we given a dirty drug test. Never have the police been called to our property for any violence, any acts of violence, any threats of violence. We have 24-hour security at our property. We do it ourselves. I challenge you to look at the records and see if the crime has gone up and down or down at 700 East, 100 South. The crime has actually gone down. We have been able to beautify the neighborhood, improve the properties, and really make it a beautiful corner there where we currently live. Those same principles and those same methods we're going to implement at the village. We will be there as a community, as a culture, holding one another accountable, not to the same degree that we do at the Other Side Academy, but in a way that will work for this population as well. I think if we've never tried this before, it's time we try something different. And I realize that a lot of people think that this is a risky proposition, but I think the true risk is staying with the status quo and not doing anything at all. If the current way we're doing things currently doesn't seem to be working well, we have to try other methods. We've gone all over the world and looked at other organizations. Community First in Austin, Texas, 51 acres of land, 350 micro homes, a population just like the one we're going to help, never had an act of violence. The methods work, the principles work, community works. It will give our population the opportunity to live a dignified life in a dignified community and have an opportunity to work and be amongst their peers and really thrive. Thank you.
Next will be David Dixon, followed by Tony Allerton, and then Marcy Phillips. David is also in person.
I'm David Dixon. I'm an architect in Salt Lake City. Had my own firm since 1990. Some of the projects I've designed you would recognize. Recent one was in Sugar House, where we put in the University of Utah medical building, office building, apartment complex. My role on this project is the managing architect of the village. And that means that I coordinate the efforts of a lot of different architects from a lot of different firms, engineers, geotechnical people, everything that's involved on this site. And I will say this is a difficult site. I would say it's probably the most encumbered site in Salt Lake City. We've got a freeway and a garbage dump on one side of it. I guess I should say landfill today. We have a wrecking yard on the other side. We only have access out onto Indiana Avenue. There's no other access to the site. It's long and narrow, goes back about 3 blocks. It has a utility line right down the center of it, a sewer line that has an easement 60 feet wide. Then we have a gas line that goes on an angle through the northern end of it. And then we have 2 fault lines running diagonally through the site that also have encumbrances or easements 65 feet wide. What's left are a lot of little parcels of triangular shapes, polygons, parallelograms. It's a difficult site to work with. However, for the village, it seems to be an ideal fit. And I would say this is probably the highest, best use for that piece of ground that you would find. I'm committed to this project for personal reasons. I have experience in my family with homelessness, and I know what this project means to people like that. I know it can help them. In my office building on 8th South, I have a lot of homeless people that sleep there at night. And I often talk to them and ask them what their background is. And I'm surprised at the potential that I see that's being lost. I hope you approve the project. Thank you.
Next will be Tony Allerton, followed by Marcy Phillips, and then Fred Conlon. Tony is here in person.
Hello, my name is Tony Allerton. I am a master's level board certified music therapist, and I have a PhD in health psychology. I work for a nonprofit called Fit to Recover, and I also have the privilege of doing a weekly group with the Other Side Academy. When the Other Side approached us about collaborating and doing a group, I jumped at the opportunity. There was not even a hesitation. I had been in awe of the Other Side for a while, and so the opportunity to go in was not that I thought that maybe we had something to offer that would make a change for the Other Side, but an opportunity to learn from the Other Side. Their program works. It's effective. As a clinician, it's always been very frustrating and discouraging to see individuals come into this revolving door system with no place to land safely and no place to really truly continue to have growth. And the Other Side Academy is providing this and providing this hope. And I'm excited to continue to learn from them, continue to watch this, and I applaud Salt Lake, the council, and the citizens, the Other Side Academy, for making such a change, for being brave enough to hold the community and make a change for the community. This is so needed. Thank you very much.
Next, we will hear from Marcy Phillips, followed by Fred Conlon, and then Mo Egan. Marcy is here in person.
Good evening. My name's Marcy Phillips, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the clinical director of housing and homelessness at Valley Behavioral Health. Valley has worked closely with the Other Side Village leadership team to design and create programming for the Welcome neighborhood, which will temporarily house and prepare individuals experiencing chronic homelessness to transition from the street to the village. I have personally been an active participant in this collaboration and have been extremely impressed with the village and its staff. The Welcome Village clients are enrolled with Valley Behavioral Health and are provided a treatment plan created by a licensed mental health therapist. This treatment plan consists of case management, medication management, and mental health services, including individual and group therapy. All of these services will continue once the individual is housed in the actual tiny home village. My experience in working with the leadership and staff at the village has been positive. They have demonstrated a commitment to mental health services and continue to make it clear that this is a priority for applicable individuals who are involved with the village. They continually collaborate with the Valley Behavioral team and have reached out on numerous occasions asking for my clinical advice and feedback. The village approaches individuals in an empowering way and works collaboratively to help them become their best self. We are pleased to continue to work with them and support them in this project. Thank you.
Next will be Fred Conlon, followed by Mo Egan, and then Robert Danielson. Fred is also here in person to speak.
My name is Fred Conlon. I am a small business owner
and an artist. I used to have a pottery shop in Sugar House. I now have a welding, fabrication and art studio in South Salt Lake. I've had the opportunity to work with the Other Side Academy for about 6 years. I've even had the privilege to hire some of their graduate students as employees. These people are some of the greatest people I've ever worked with, mostly for their honesty, their integrity, and their accountability. Some of the finest people I know. I've often thought about what makes that honesty, integrity, and accountability. Is it the Armstrong mansion where they live in? Is it the retirement center that they've refurbished next to them? It's none of those things. The strength of the culture is found in the community, and the strength of the community is found in its culture. TOSA, the Other Side Academy, has all of that. Regarding the Other Side Village, are the tiny houses going to change people's lives? Maybe yes, maybe no. I do know this, that the integrity, the honesty, and the accountability of the community will be its strength. The strength of the community is the culture. It's not enough to just take the people out of the slums. I know that the Other Side Academy has the ability, through its culture, to take the slums out of the people.
Next, we will hear from Mo Egan, followed by Robert Danielson, and then Eduardo Ortiz. Mo is here in person to speak.
My name is Mo Egan. I'm the Director of Neighborhood Recruitment for the Other Side Village. I'm 17 years clean and sober today, but I've smoked drugs for 20 years, and I was homeless for 10 years in the Tenderloin District in San Francisco, California. I know what it's like to be on both sides. I spent the last year visiting Jordan River homeless camps, homeless shelters, and resource centers. What I heard and experienced was folks that are in the similar situations I experienced while homeless, mostly a catastrophic loss of family and community. The model that was available to me when I was homeless offered housing vouchers. Problem is that when I took that housing voucher to my new SRO or apartment, I also had in my pocket crack, meth, and every other drug. 2 weeks later, everyone else in the neighborhood I did drugs with were in my apartment. 2 months later, I was evicted. Surprise. Now I'm back in line for services again, sponsored by taxpayers. I've also tried the 30, 60, 90-day programs. I graduated from all of them, but I knew something was missing, and then I would fail again. Looking back, I now see that it was very unreasonable for a person like me that had been a drug addict, a criminal for 20 years, to suddenly be well and ready to go at the end of 30, 60, or 90 days. What I needed was a community that would teach me some much-needed behavioral changes, one that helped me learn accountability, not only for myself, but for my neighbor and for my community. An example, once inside the Other Side Village, if a neighbor comes out and throws a Coca-Cola can on the ground, our success overall depends on how long it takes for the next person to speak up and say, hey, we don't do that here. We have a beautiful community that's safe, and we want to keep it that way. Please pick up that Coca-Cola can. This is the reason why it takes spending time in a community that works one-on-one, heart-to-heart, and person-to-person. That's how you move the needle with this population. When I asked the question to potential villagers, are you willing to live in a community that's drug and alcohol-free? The answer has been yes. We want to make sure that once a person does the work and moves into housing, they know what's expected and have the skills to actually keep it, and then begin to put the American dream back on the table. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Robert Danielson, followed by Eduardo Ortiz, and then Christopher Kavar-Ford. Robert, you are unmuted.
Great, thank you. So TOSA has a track record of success, and I encourage everyone to visit and tour TOSA. Look at the grounds and the facilities. They're free of trash and vandalism. In fact, the grounds are well manicured, and residents take great pride in the meticulously kept facilities. If there's trash on the ground, it's picked up. And TOSA is integrated seamlessly into the neighborhood. TOSA is making significant impacts on lives by giving them, the people that they're serving, a path, renewed hope, dignity, and accountability. Contrast this with the status quo service providers, running the shelters and the resource centers. Those resource centers and shelters are littered with trash, used needles, paraphernalia, graffiti, and vandalism. You'll find drug use, drug sales, prostitution, and violence at these facilities in the surrounding neighborhoods, none of which is at TOSA. The current resource centers are nothing short of a complete failure, and they are the definition of the homeless industrial complex. I urge the council to recognize and reward the success that is TOSA by approving the Other Side Village. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Eduardo Ortiz, and then Christopher Coverfort, and then Jeff Idle. Eduardo is here in person to speak.
Good evening. My name is Eduardo Ortiz. I'm the team lead for Safe Haven at Valley Behavioral Health. I work directly with most of these folks.
Excuse me,
housed.
sir. Could you just get a little closer? Thank you.
Sorry. In my experience with the village, I've seen their commitment to prioritizing mental health and understanding the importance not only of our clientele, but also the community. Since I've started working with the village, anytime there's a situation where a client isn't meeting expectations or treatment goals, both my team and the village team get together to provide support to help our clientele get back on the right path to achieving their goals. When it comes to keeping treatment a priority, both the village and my team work together in helping clients keep treatment always at the forefront of their care. Prioritizing case management, medication management, individual therapy, and other wraparound services is our collective mission, alongside having these folks in a community where they are motivated to succeed and thrive. Our combined efforts have placed these folks on paths where they can not only be stories of perseverance, but also ones of example. These folks are the shining example of redemption and effort that not only come from them, but from all of us. The effort comes from not only them, but from all of us. We understand your concern in the possible reduction of resources when the folks move into the village. Collectively, we mental health professionals would agree that pulling the plug on providing mental health services to these folks would be disastrous to the residents and a disservice to the community. Like any chronic condition, care must be accessible to maintain stability. The only way to have a productive community of folks who struggle with chronic mental illness is working with mental health treatment professionals and establish trust in the surrounding community. Establishing trust takes time and education that we hope, as conjoined partners, we can establish with the surrounding community. Both Valley Behavioral Health and the village have committed ourselves to providing the standard of care these residents deserve and need. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Christopher Coverfort, followed by Jeff Idle, and then Brian Billmar. Christopher, you are unmuted.
Hello, thank you, Council, for hearing our comments tonight. I work for Denton House and have had the opportunity to work with the TOSA team on developing portions of this project, and I just wanted to speak in support tonight of the project and specifically talk a minute about just a successful community. So I really see three things that take a successful community: vision, some level of programming, and community. And some of those things we've heard spoken about tonight already. TOSA provides that for people. This community, I believe, has the opportunity and will be a model for not only people experiencing homelessness, but for all of us in terms of access to social enterprises, walkability, small footprint living, and other things that I think are critical to our society as we move forward. The people that I've met and have the opportunity to work with, more than anything, two words stand out: hope and integrity. And I just wanted to encourage the council to stand in support of this project in this location. It's a very constrained site, as was also spoken about. What an amazing potential use and opportunity that we have at this time. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Jeff Idle, followed by Brian Billmeier, and then Karen Rowe. Jeff is here in person to speak.
Taylor, he had to leave. So we need to move on to...
Okay, next will be Brian Billmeier, who is in person.
Hello, my name is Brian Billmar. I am a graduate from the Other Side Academy. I spent a little over 3 years there. And before the academy, I was homeless for about a year and a half to 2 years. I had lost my way. I was lying, cheating, manipulating, stealing, and when I found the academy, they taught me how to be accountable, how to have and be impeccably honest, and it was just I get a little emotional. It's this academy saved my life. If it wasn't for the people that have done it before me, if it wasn't for Dave, Joseph, there's no doubt in my mind where I would be. This academy changes lives, and due to this academy, in my length of stay there, I now hold a full-time job. I am back in my daughter's life. I'm rebuilding the relationships with family members that never wanted to see me again, and every day is just a beautiful day, thanks to the Other Side Academy.
Next, we will hear from Karen Rowe, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Elna Ham. Karen is here in person.
I'm speaking in support of the Other Side Village. From a mental health professional perspective, this is a healthy opportunity for those with dual diagnosis to be self-reliant and to live productive and healthy lives. What is different with this project is that these individuals will have coaches alongside them to help them. This is more than has been done in many Utah communities. They are in the process of deepening the training for the coaches who are working with these individuals. I have seen them working with the residents of the Other Side Village and believe this will become a model for bettering the lives of individuals with dual diagnosis. The Other Side Village is partnering with professional mental health providers such as myself and Valley Behavioral Health. I echo the support of those who have already spoken this evening and am in favor of this privately funded project. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Nigel Swaby, followed by Elna Hamp, and then Jen Colby. Nigel is here in person to speak.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for listening to that matter. My name is Nigel Swaby, and I live in Fair Park, and I'm speaking as a resident tonight. Over the last 5 years, I've had a number of opportunities to interact with the Other Side Academy and the village and their new folks over there. And I can assure you that each and every time has been uplifting for me, and it has been so educational to hear the stories of these people and how they've been impacted by the program in such a positive way. I'm also kind of a community nerd, so I've been listening to the way you guys have been deliberating over this for the past 4 or 5 weeks. And I've also listened to the people who are opposed to it and continue to be opposed to it. And they've got some good points for sure. But this time it really is different. This is a different program with different results, and I believe it will bring a positive impact to the Poplar Grove community and the surrounding ones in Fair Park and Glendale. And hopefully it can become a model that gets adopted further throughout our communities, because I would much rather have neighbors like these folks who are here tonight than some of the neighbors that I currently have. So in terms of the criminal activity, the drug activity, what some of these folks used to be, it's not good in our neighborhoods. So I urge you to approve this and get it going as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Next will be Elna Hamp, followed by Jen Colby, and then Tanya Petras. Elna is here in person.
Hi, I'm Elna Hamp. I'm the clinic administrator for Jordan Landing Clinic. My brother Howard died on May 14th of 2011 in an extended stay hotel. My brother suffered from isolation, loneliness, addiction, mental health, and medical issues. He was in and out of addiction centers, halfway houses, mental health facilities, on the street, jails, family homes, and my parents' tool shed when my parents could no longer feel safe in their home. It was heartbreaking. Most of us here today have similar experiences. In April of 2021, I was in Austin, Texas for a healthcare conference. After my speaking engagement, I took an Uber to the Community First in Austin. It is a community for previously homeless folks and meets them where they are. I stopped in and didn't leave for several days. I extended my trip. I met a fellow living at Community First that reminds me of my brother. Like my brother, my friend is a kind soul. Unfortunately, has many tragic incidents that led to addiction, health issues, and ultimately homelessness. However, my friend now has a home and support from a loving and respectful community. I learned a lot from this trip. What Community First lacked was comprehensive wraparound services. 2 weeks ago, I went to San Antonio to see another model, the Haven of Hope, a model that provides comprehensive wraparound services. Haven of Hope exceeded all my expectations. It's more than a shelter. It's a transformational campus that empowers individuals to transform their lives. Like the Haven of Hope, the Other Side Village will provide those currently homeless in Salt Lake City with a home, a community, healthcare services, smart love, respect, and dignity to transform their lives. In closing, I have heard the concerns of the community in past meetings. I too am concerned. Models in Salt Lake City, like the Gail Miller Resource Center and Magnolia, have not been successful. Crime has escalated. We need and must demand accountability in all things and all involved. Make sure that is part of your agreement with the Other Side Village. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Jen Colby, followed by Tanya Petros, and then Scott Shuttle. Jen's here in person.
Great. Jen Colby, District 4. I live very close to the 7th East facilities and strongly support TOSA and their programming. However, I must say I oppose both the lease and the rezoning. Please hit a hard pause or cancel the entire concept and project. Do not let the sunk cost fallacy or program testimonials lead you to make a poor decision. The public benefits analysis for this $8 million valuation site are shockingly free of any numbers, just platitudes and assumptions. Tiny homes started as an anti-consumerist fringe green movement. They have now been embraced as a Swiss Army knife solution. Good intentions do not equal wise investments. A recent study by the Bay Area News Group should give you pause. The data do not support claims by proponents. At best, the tiny home developments studied were marginally better than emergency sheltering. Tiny home lottery winners failed to move into permanent housing 50 to 75% of the time, many returning to the streets. Moreover, the costs are extremely high for the results. Tiny homes with bathrooms and kitchens cost more than renting market-rate studio apartments in San Jose. Having robust social services improved outcomes but added costs. That's what TOSA does, but it's not the site. It's not the tiny homes, it's the programs. The project won't take housing vouchers, a major flaw. This is a distraction from the myriad real solutions needed, like legal services to clear eviction and arrest records, reforming city fees and fine policies, robust, well-funded social services, harm reduction, and yes, adequate community-based permanent and deeply affordable housing, which the RMF 30 changes, the so-called affordable overlay, will just undermine. This is a terrible location as well. It's adjacent to I-215 with serious noise and tailpipe pollution. It also has poor transportation options and is far from businesses and social services. A disabled friend I helped keep from falling into homelessness now lives at the Point and feels isolated without a car. This site is worse. How is it possible to only create 10 units of tiny houses per acre at this site, even for a pilot? This is tiny home sprawl at its worst. The density is unacceptable, especially in the face of the proposed RMF 30 changes. They should convert motels and apartment buildings, not build sprawling, inefficient tiny houses. Good organization, wrong model. Thank you.
Next will be Tanya Petros, followed by Scott Schultz, and then Ned Scanchi. Tanya is here in person.
Hello, I would like to, my full name is Tanya Dakota Petros. I'm here for the, and prove this is a good thing. First of all, the other side village is my family, and family sticks together no matter what happens. It's good for the community, and I would love to one day host family and friends at my tiny cottage, and part of that family is the other side village family that we are creating in our meetings every day. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Scott Schultz, followed by Ned Scanchi, and then Rick Graham. Scott is here in person.
Hi, my name is Scott Schulte. Good try, though. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Several years ago, I was a lot like a lot of you guys. I had a great career. I was successful in my career. I had a great family, had a nice car. Things were going really, really well. I had managed to figure out how to live with my mental illness so that I could be successful. And then I went in for surgery. I had a knee replacement. And this was just prior to this pendulum swinging back about the dangers of pain medicine. And I was a victim. Victim's not a good word. I made all the decisions ultimately. I was given a gigantic bottle of pain medicine with really no instruction on what I'm supposed to do other than what it said on the bottle. I lived alone, and so I quickly allowed myself to become addicted to pain medicine. In short, my life quickly spun out of control, and I wound up homeless. And I had nothing in my life that made me feel good. I had no confidence and so on. And then a few months ago, this gentleman, Mo, who spoke earlier, he came and reached out to me. And through a series of events, I'm now part of the village. And it's just, I can't put into words what an amazing program this is. I'm excited because I know we're going to be successful. So one of the misconceptions that people have about the program is that anyone can come up to, say, Mo, and say, I want a house. And then they're going to give one. That's not the case. We go through a very, very lengthy, meaningful admittance program so to make sure that's a good fit. Then once that's done, and what I'm doing, and Tanya, who just spoke, is doing, is we're going through a process so that when the time comes for us to receive our tiny homes, we're prepared. Simple things like learning how to budget again, and other skills so that we don't get into a home, and as was brought up earlier by another speaker, getting into a home, losing it. Thank you.
Next will be Ned Scanchi, followed by Rick Graham, and then Daniel Strong. Ned is here in person.
Hi, Councilman and Councilwomen. Thank you very much for your service. My name is Ned Scanchi. I am a longtime Salt Lake resident, and I also manage apartments and properties in Salt Lake, and interestingly enough, in San Francisco. So the comment about what's happening in San Francisco, I do think we should not follow what they're doing there with homelessness. It is a mess, and I think what we're doing here is something very different with the Other Side Academy. I became exposed to the Other Side Academy a few years ago when I started seeing the homeless problem expand all the way from the mouth of Parley's Point down through Sugar House into downtown and some of our properties. And I started thinking about what we could do to address that and discovered the Other Side Academy. Started working with them, touring there. I think one perspective I can add that has not been given tonight is that as a property management company, we actually have graduates from the Other Side Academy living at our properties. So these are people who have come through the program from drug addictions, crimes, and homelessness, and now they are current on their rents. They are not having any problems in their apartments, and they're being a great asset to our communities. So the concerns about the people that we're bringing, I think in talking with one of the members of TOSA, he said, I used to be addicted to drugs. I'm still addicted, but now I'm addicted to helping people. This is the kind of people we want in our communities and contributing to this. I hope you will support the proposal for the rezone and the lease, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Rick Graham, followed by Daniel Strong, and then James Benchy. Rick is in person to speak.
Good evening. Rick Graham. I'm a Salt Lake City resident in District 5. For years when I wasn't at home, I lived in this building for about 25 years in the first floor. I wasn't homeless. I'm here tonight to speak, advocate for, and to speak in favor of the Other Side Village project. This project will not be an end-all solution to homelessness, addiction, crime, and broken lives, but it is a proven starting point for those who want to and are willing to change their lives. Whole person change, again, whole person change, that is what is the fundamental mission and what its function is for TOSA. Earlier this evening, Mr. Dixon just talked about how this site is a difficult site. In my 30s, this land use has existed in its current state for over 42 years, even longer. If the city felt it had greater value, that would have been discovered and developed long ago. In my 36 years with the city, it was used as a surplus land dump for snow, storm debris, equipment, storage, asphalt, tree debris, and dirt. Functionally, a landfill. The city has kept its junk there for years. I participated in studies to use this site as a park, soccer fields, baseball diamonds, and fleet facility. Today, I am glad those plans never materialized because this TOSA plan is a better use. Please consider accepting the gift of TOSA and fill it with the city's most prized assets, its citizens, the critically challenged men and women citizens, and there are many of them, our brothers, our children, our parents, our friends. Help them off the streets, away from the drug trade, crime, and violent society that preys on them, and into a facility and program that will house them, train them, and respect them. I ask for your support in this project. Thank you.
Next will be Daniel Strong, followed by James Benchy, and then Darren Mann. Daniel's here in person.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Strong. I represent the West Side Coalition, a group of stakeholders on the West Side that includes all 6 community council chairs. I'm not here today to speak for or against this project specifically, but to offer some context and give some voice to the West Side. As I sit here tonight, I'm kind of struck, and I'm thinking back to the East Side's response to a proposal to house the In-Between, a hospice for people experiencing homelessness in their community. And I mean, it could be described as panic in some circles, and it did eventually go in, but that was a project that really came with some strong bona fides and a good track record. And again, there was a strong reaction from the community. Contrast that with this project, which I think even its most favorable characterization is an experiment, something that hasn't been tried before. And you hear the West Side being fairly receptive to this proposal, more than I think could be expected. In a way, I'm pretty proud of that. I know that we're a welcoming community, one that wants to help the vulnerable, and I'm proud of those things. But we're also not here to be a rubber stamp for these projects or to be a doormat for future projects. As we look at the development of affordable and deeply affordable housing coming to the West Side, it is not equitable. There's over 295 deeply affordable units currently being built in the North Temple corridor. There's 5 on the East Side. Some of these are good, thoughtful projects, and maybe this is one of them. Others are much more large scale and not really going to help our community very much. So I think I'm here mainly to just remind you all that we're here, we care, we're listening, and we want to be a part of these discussions. We want the projects that come to our community to be well thought out, to be community supported, and to be things that are going to help us grow in the right way. Again, we see the disparity coming. We don't speak with one voice on this project in particular, but we do speak with one voice saying that we want equitable development on the West Side. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from James Benchy, followed by Darren Mann, and then Jason Seaton. James is here in person.
Hello. My name is James B. Hunnan. I'm the Executive Director of the Pioneer Park Coalition. In a previous life, I did some data analytics for the legislature on homeless issues, and when I retired, the folks from the Other Side Academy asked if I could tell them how to do some outcome measures, and I told them, well, I'll just do a study for you. And I did. I looked at their their outcomes for some maybe 80, 90 of their graduates. And I can tell you the data is pretty impressive, that they have about an 80% success rate, where 2 years after they've left the program, they're not homeless and they're not back in the criminal justice system. Now let me speak from the perspective of the Pioneer Park Coalition. We represent the business community that's been adversely affected by some of the facilities that we've seen in the community. This is not that kind of project. I would say the Poplar Grove residents ought to be nervous about having a facility serving the homeless based on what we see in a lot of these facilities. There is an increase in crime. But I can tell you that the way that TOSA is run, that you're not going to have that experience there. I've been to the Community First facility in Austin. I've been around the neighborhood there. If they model it after that, which I understand they will, they should have no concern about impacts on the larger community. It should be an asset to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Darren Mann, followed by Jason Seaton, and then Mary Notham. Darren is here in person.
Hello, my name is Darren Mann. I'm the executive director of the Village Cooperative. We are an urban farm based out of Fair Park, just 4 blocks north of North Temple. And I also live at that property. We have 7 gardens, and our primary directive is food justice, providing food to families in need. We feed anywhere from 80 to 200 families every month on a consistent basis, fresh veggies. And I was also the crazy cat that had the homeless camp in his front yard that had several different challenges because along the west side, as a west side residents, we have a problem, which is the unsheltered not having a place to go. We've pushed it around from community to community and trying to find a solution. And so I was fed up with that. And so I tried to find a solution, but lacked adequate resources. We had a tragedy happen with a woman dying of carbon monoxide poisoning because we just did not have the facilities to do so. But the Other Side Academy has stepped up to provide a solution toward our problem along the West Side community, and they do have the resources necessary, the skills, the training, and the community support to do so. It may be scary for some residents, but I'm glad that it has fallen upon us along the West Side community, because I think we're strong as a community and we can rise to the challenge, and it will actually be a betterment toward our community because we can actually show what happens when a community stands together, shoulder to shoulder, to find solutions instead of just passing the buck. So I'm really excited to see this development grow, see how we can rise together as a community, and I'm truly grateful to hear all of the voices that came here in support. There's been a lot of support tonight, and I'm excited to see where we can go as a community. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Jason Seaton, followed by Mary Notham, and then Allison Lewis. Jason, you are unmuted.
Thank you. As the first person to speak from Poplar Grove, I think, Eric Lopez used to live here as well, but I currently live here, and I'd like to say that if everything went well with this proposed development, the city still leaves Poplar Grove and Glendale and much of the west side in a lurch when it comes to support for lots of other things. If we were a stronger community and we had other amenities that kept us a lot healthier, a lot more walkable, a lot more inviting, this would be, believe it or not, an easier pill to swallow. The problem is that because of things like this, because the city keeps throwing all of the issues, the heaviest issues, into the poorest neighborhoods, they remain the poorest neighborhoods because there's no opportunity for developers to become visionary. The city can't become visionary on what we could possibly have here in this community. It's just forgotten and tossed to the side. We're inundated with this sort of thing. We're not allowed to grow or move forward. And that's just not true for other areas in the valley as a whole. And I don't understand why it is that the poorest among us have to bear the brunt and weight of society's issues. Why do we have to carry that? Why don't we get help from other folks? Why does it have to be here? That's all I have to say.
Next will be Allison Lewis, followed by Lou Swain, and then Levi Woodruff. Allison, you are unmuted.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. My name is Allison Lewis, and I'm a resident of Poplar Grove. In fact, I live just up Indiana from this site. I'm speaking today because I've been involved in various capacities with the Other Side Village, and what I want to communicate to this group is that TOSA has, at every step of the way, engaged my neighborhood. You've already heard from a number of supporters and some opponents to this village. Although I think TOSA has an incredible plan to create a community for these individuals living in the village as a way to help them with their struggles with addiction and mental health, I don't plan to speak about the Other Side Village's operation model. What I want to speak to is the opportunity the city has to have the Other Side Academy as a partner. Dave Dixon, the managing architect, already spoke about the fact he believes that the Other Side Village is the highest and best use for this site. While I agree this site has constraints that would make other types of development incredibly challenging, the site is a poor choice for this village because it's disconnected from goods and services in our city and isn't well served by public transit. But these are not insurmountable challenges. These are challenges the city can work with TOSA on to address. And this is the heart of what I want to say this evening. This goes beyond leasing this property for $1 per year and rezoning it to a form-based urban neighborhood. The city has the opportunity to work with an organization who is dedicated to making this village thrive by providing the support to allow these residents to live a quality life. Thank you.
Next will be Lou Swain, followed by Levi Woodruff, and then Daniel Brigham. Lou is in person to speak.
Good evening. My name is Lou Swain. For 30 years, I was a partner with the Boyer Company here in Salt Lake City, developing commercial projects. Because of what I've seen with the Other Side Academy, I volunteered to help with the development of this project. And I can tell you that there's a groundswell of support in the construction community from organizations as large as Jacobson and Oakland Construction, the Home Builders Association of Utah, who have agreed to build over 20 homes. Architects, engineers, individual home builders have come to us and said, we want to contribute. School districts, schools from Cedar City to Ogden, the Ogden Technical Center, the University of Utah have said, we want to build homes for this because we see a sea change in how homelessness can be addressed in our community, and it makes us feel like we're making progress. There has been much said about the $1 a year lease on this property. I think it's very important to know that TOSA is going to invest $8 million in the first phase of this project of their own money and money that is contributed by donors and the State of Utah Homeless Initiative. Most of that money is already raised. It's available. We're ready to go. The asset that is currently owned by the city will be greatly enhanced by that kind of an investment of homes, of infrastructure. And we will bring transportation to that area. We will address those issues that are of concern. I think the debate of this issue is a little like debating the benefits. Thank you.
Next will be Levi Woodruff, followed by Daniel Brigham, and then Spencer Bowler. Ava, you are unmuted.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this important issue. I would urge you to approve this project. Firstly, I just want to say there is tremendous need for housing like this village. The Salt Lake Valley Coalition to End Homelessness reported earlier this year that currently Salt Lake County is short 600 units of permanent supportive housing compared to what the need is, and that we will need to add about 280 new units each year to keep up with demand. This village will help to fill that need. It is much less expensive to provide people with stable, healthy housing in a community that has supportive services than it is to keep cycling people through the jail system, through temporary shelters, through other services. It is much more humane. There is nothing helpful or humane or positive benefit to the city or anyone else long-term to allow people to suffer, to struggle to survive while sleeping on the streets, to have barred access to the services that they need to become stable again. This community will provide not only housing, but it will provide benefit to the area that it is in and to the residents with its sustainable model, including retail and other services that will be open to the community. So this is truly an opportunity to help meet a serious need that we have in terms of shortage of affordable housing, but also to create real value in the lives of the people who will live here and in the lives of the people currently living in the neighborhoods surrounding it. A land that was not going to any good use is going to go to a tremendously beneficial use. And this will help make the lives of the residents in the village and in the neighborhood around the village better. And so I would urge you to approve this project and support the village. Thank you very much.
Next will be Daniel Brigham, followed by Spencer Bowler, and then Maria Garcias. Daniel is here in person.
Hi there. I'm here to speak in support of this whole measure. I've had the pleasure of visiting Community First in Austin, Texas. I have a good friend who is a resident there, and I've witnessed firsthand how valuable giving people dignity and just a chance at something that they can be a part of can really be. I think that some of the objections that I've heard for this proposal seem to be about the cost per square foot of roofs over heads, and I don't really think that's what this is about. There's a lot more here than just a climate-controlled space to be inside. And building community, I've seen that people we've seen people come up here today who've benefited and then joined the cause. And just to be seen succeeding by your peers and to be seen coming up gives people hope. And this really offers something exponential beyond just a square foot housing cost. So thank you.
Next will be Spencer Bowler, followed by Maria Garcias, and then Rich Stoll. Spencer is here in person to speak.
So, thank you, council members, for hearing our comments today. My name is Spencer Bowler, a resident of Fair Park. By profession, I'm a builder, and I'm a student of sustainability. I just wanted to show up today in support of the initiative of the Other Side Academy and kind of bear a little bit of my experience with them. I'm also a member of the recovery community, battling my own addictions and traumas through my life. But through getting to meet some of the individuals involved in the Other Side's program, through their thrift stores and just being helped by somebody that was so happy, I had to share my story and hear his, and as well as getting to see their members at work through their moving company, being on site and having a truck come and to know what they're about and then to hear them share their story with their clients. And I'm just really happy that they're putting their effort and their attention towards solving the problem that we have with homelessness in our community. Thank you.
And next will be Maria Garcias, followed by Rich Stoll, and then Esther Stoll. Maria is here in person.
Good evening. Maria Garcia, CEO of NeighborWorks Salt Lake. I'm a resident of the Guadalupe neighborhood in Fair Park community. As a city council, as collective decision makers for Salt Lake City, I have a question for you. What's your vision for Salt Lake City's west side? As you formulate that vision or revisit that vision, as you make this very important decision on this lease, I would like you to consider the trauma the west side has experienced. Freeways, train tracks, gateway commercial abandonment, overrepresentation of subsidized housing, 4 decades of disinvestment, Operation Rio Grande, overflow shelters, inland port, the prison, and the list goes on. What message are you sending to me, my children, and future generations? This is not about TOSA and the great work that they do. There is no question they are an amazing organization. And I'm grateful that TOSA does understand trauma, because they should know how it makes me as a resident feel. This is about what the West Side deserves from an economic development perspective. The land is a great economic opportunity that could be built out and made available to all of the West Side. I'm a developer. I'll take a land lease for $1. I'll build something that will contribute. Thank you.
Next will be Rich Stoll, followed by Esther Stoll. Rich is here in person.
Thank you. You're going to hear from my wife. She's very passionate about this. Don't worry about her. Go ahead and let TOSA build their village in Poplar Grove. It's just a bunch of poor minorities who live there. They don't vote very much. You really need to think about the East Side residents. They've got property values that you really don't want to put at risk. Our property values are relatively low, so it's okay. It's a perfect place to build a community that puts the safety of our children at risk. Many residents of our neighborhood are recent immigrants struggling to make a better life. They don't know any better. They should just be grateful that they get to be here at any rate. They won't make a fuss. Some say you should invest in parks in the West Side, but that would require you to grapple with the fact that our parks are overwhelmed with unhoused individuals. The village will bring more of them into our neighborhood, but that is far better than having to worry about a homeless person in a park in the Yellcrest neighborhood. You talk about equity, don't worry about the hypocrisy. Folks on the East Side don't really want equity if it means bearing any of the burden. And folks on the West Side don't believe their representatives have their best interest in mind anyway, so there's nothing to worry about. What we've got in Salt Lake is a ghetto in the making where we can concentrate crime, drugs, and homelessness. West of the freeway is a great spot to ensure that all of the difficult problems that the city doesn't want to deal seriously with won't spread further east. Better to cordon it off into one neighborhood that you don't have to pay attention to. This should be an easy vote for all of you, as long as you don't worry about the needs of our struggling neighborhood. Thank you.
And next will be Esther Stoll, who is also here in person.
Evening, everyone. I know most of you know who I am, and you know how I feel about this. Not just TOSA, but all the concentration on the West Side. I don't come here with a speech prepared because I want to listen. I don't want to assume that I know everything about what's going on. So I'm here listening to all the feedback that we're getting here this evening. But what I'm still focused on is the concentration on the West Side. It is very clear. The disparity is very, very clear. And that is what I want everyone to focus on. I don't want the focus on TOSA and how wonderful their organization is. No one is doubting that. What we are here as West Siders, as a resident of Poplar Grove who lives right on Indiana Avenue, whose children attend Wallace-Stegner Academy, used to attend Wallace-Stegner Academy, who walks that street, crosses that Redwood Road. I am here, and also as a community council chair who deals with the residents who call about the issues with parking and trash on the sidewalk. I am here to represent those people. And I'm also here as a mother who is very, very interested and very, very committed to making sure that their children grow up in a safe environment, that their children get the same benefits as every child in the city, because we too pay taxes that pay for your salaries. Yes. And I hear that term of city-owned property, but what we fail to realize is that without the residents of this city, there will be no city government. So let's think about those residents as you make your decisions. This isn't about TOSA. It's about the concentration of homelessness, poverty on one section of town. And that's what I'm here to say. I will keep saying that until whatever decision gets made. I will keep speaking on that. Thank you.
And that was the final person registered to comment for this item.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for those comments. We appreciate all the perspectives, and I am going to look for a motion for this item or for these two items. Anyone?
Madam Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing on the other side village, the public benefits analysis and below market lease rate and term, which is item number 6, the rezoning application, which is item number 7, and defer action to a future council meeting.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Petro and seconded by Councilmember Pui. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Petro?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Wharton?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Pui?
Yes.
And I'm not sure if Mano is around.
No.
Okay, all right. And I'm a yes. So that passes, that motion passes 6-0. I'm looking at Cindy Lou to make sure that I'm good. Okay, there you go. This brings us to potential action item C1 regarding an ordinance of Green Street Alley vacation. And I will look for a motion. Yes.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Councilmember Dugan. Any discussion on this street alley vacation? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Pui?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Petro?
Yes.
All right, and I'm a yes. That motion passes 6-0. Let me see. We're moving on to item C2. Is regarding an ordinance budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2022-23. I look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City only for the items as shown on the motion sheet. Second.
Right, any discussion? I don't see anybody that want to continue that discussion, so I'm going to roll call this. Council member, hold on, I missed that. I got a motion by Council Member Pui and seconded by Council Member Dugan. I am going to roll call this. Council Member Petro.
Yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and that passes. All right, so we're at section D, which is our comment section. Questions to the mayor from the city council, and are there any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor, for being here and during a long comment period with us. We appreciate it, and Rachel too. We're at item number 2, comments to the city council. All right. And this is a comment portion of our agenda, and I will hear comments, we'll hear comments on general topics and items not scheduled for a hearing tonight. I went over the City Council's rules of the quorum earlier, and those rules apply here as well. We're accepting comments in person, online, via WebEx, or via telephone for those whose only option is to call in. Isaac Canedo on our staff is moderating the meeting and will message attendees as needed. Taylor Hill and our staff will call the names of those who wish to comment based on the order of registration or received comment cards. Once we open the public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so that people can have some notice and prepare to speak. When it is your turn to speak, for people in WebEx, she will unmute your line and you may begin. If you're here in person, please step up to that podium to make your comments once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and your 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, the host will announce time and your microphone will be muted. If you're unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is available in the meeting room and in the WebEx chat. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name, let us know you're here to listen. This is for general comments, so not for the items that we heard already. If you still have comments about that, please send it to us via email or talk to one of our staff people. Taylor, you can begin with our first general comment.
Thanks, Madam Chair. It looks like there are 8 people here for general comment. The first will be Melissa Reagan, followed by Robert Danielson, and then Kirby Croyle. Melissa, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council members. My name is Melissa Reagan. I'm an attorney at Sherman & Howard, 675 15th Street, Denver, Colorado. Our firm represents Verizon Wireless and serves as outside counsel. Earlier today, we submitted a letter commenting on agenda item number F2, the proposed ordinance regarding the placement of small wireless facilities in the public way. As set forth in our letter, we request the City Council continue this item until a later date to allow Verizon Wireless and the wireless industry to meet with the city staff to discuss these proposed design standards. Verizon Wireless only learned of this proposed ordinance right before the work session 2 weeks ago. We'd like to have the opportunity to have meaningful discussion about these standards. Second, as set forth in our letter, we'd also ask these design standards be included as part of the city's existing small cell infrastructure design standards. As the City Council and city staff are well aware, small wireless technology is constantly evolving and changing, and these proposed standards likely will need to be updated within the next year or two. And as things move forward, it's much easier process for the city to update its design standards rather to address these changes to deal with aesthetic and design issues and new technologies rather than having to revise its code on a regular basis. Finally, if the City Council does decide to move forward with the proposed ordinance this evening, we ask the Council to consider the proposed edits we provided to the language in our letter today. We think these proposed edits will help make the design standards more objective and clearer for applicants to follow the process. And with that, we thank you for the time this evening and are available for any questions.
Next, we will hear from Robert Danielson, followed by Kirby Croyle, and then Kate Reddy. Robert, you are unmuted.
Thank you very much. Equity, equality, fairness. These are words that are used to exhaustion by this council. Elected representatives such as councilmen and councilwomen have an obligation to their constituents to practice what they preach and follow the same rules, regulations, laws, and ordinances of the civilians that they represent. Leaders lead by example. It is beyond disturbing, and it's insulting to the community that District 5 councilperson Darren Mano, who has an architectural degree from Harvard, is a practicing architect in Salt Lake City, doesn't feel the need to get the required permits for the construction on his own home. What message does this send? This doesn't appear equitable, equal, or quite simply fair. but rather typical behavior of the stereotypical, self-serving politician. Do as I say, not as I do, peasant. Councilman Mano, your District 5 constituents want answers, and maybe you need to consider stepping down and allowing someone who's respectful of their constituents and the civilians in this
I'm
city.
going to stop you for a moment because I do think that this is some defamatory remarks against Councilmember Mano.
Came right from the city.
And I would like to
I have the
double check
letter.
with our city attorney, but I would like to stop this for a moment and we'll get back to you. Please, thank you. All right. So we would like you to continue your comments. We just would like you not to comment on his ethics, and we can talk about this we can continue this conversation with you at another time, but please go ahead and finish your comments for now.
Ethics? Ethics, just so you know, the information came directly from the city of Salt Lake, from Salt Lake City, from the permitting department. I have it in writing. I'm stating facts. So the bottom line is, we want answers, and if you're not going to live up to the expectations that you have for us as citizens, step down and let somebody who's respectful of their constituents and truly practices what they preach do the job.
Next, we will hear from Kirby Croyle, followed by Kate Reddy and then Nigel Swaby. Kirby is here in person to speak.
Thank you, Council, and thank you to Mayor Mendenhall and all of you for your hard work and leadership. The role that you have is highly visible, challenging, interesting, and remarkable, so thank you. I am here, my name is Kirby Croyle. I am representing the League of Women Voters of Salt Lake County. I care about what goes on in the county and what hard work you do and what issues and matters come up day to day and here in our council meetings. I'm introducing Kate Reddy to you, who is also a resident of Salt Lake City. I am a resident of the county. Kate has volunteered to become your observer. We have an observer corps in Salt Lake Valley and Salt Lake County that represents the League of Women Voters to listen and observe in a nonpartisan fashion to city councils across the county. And we currently have 8 observers in 8 different communities. And our nonpartisan organization, we promote full participation by citizens in all aspects of municipal government, including transportation, land use, planning, zoning, housing, fiscal and infrastructure management, and ensuring that we learn more about collaborating with you and your colleagues for the benefit of Utah voters. Right now, we are impactfully working on Vote 411. Please take a look at that online. That's a way to learn about what's going on your ballots. We are, again, as I state, nonpartisan. We want to make sure that our government is open, accountable, and responsive to residents' needs and concerns. And we do this by asking our Observer Corps to be present at select county council, city council meetings, and to provide that information to our organization. I want to introduce Kate Reddy to you, your new observer, and I thank you for your time today.
Next, we will hear from Kate Reddy, followed by Nigel Swaby, and then Cindy Cromer. Kate is here in person.
Hi, Kirby just introduced me. I'm Kate Reddy. I'm a co-owner of McKenna Mulhern, a local communication company, and I certainly know how to choose the meeting to attend in person. we can see. I volunteered to be an observer for the League of Women Voters, and my district is 6. My representative, Dan Dugan. I highly respect the League's stance on nonpartisanship. I've been in Utah for many years, but as an Irish Catholic Democrat from New York, I know how partisanship can cause troubles. So I very much support their stance, and I also want to help them with their goal of getting well-informed voters to the polls. That's going to be my main focus. And thank you, Kirby.
And next we will hear from Nigel Swaby, followed by Cindy Cromer, and then George Chapman. Nigel is here in person.
Good evening. Thank you again, Council. I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but there were some really good points brought up about the equitable distribution of homeless overflow, homeless resource centers, and deeply affordable housing on the west side. I think Maria Garcia's made a great point. What is the plan for the west side? I'm seeing in my neighborhood businesses leaving. We lost 4 in the last month on North Temple, which is the main hub. Now, am I sad that a dollar store left? Not personally, but some of my neighbors, that's their grocery store. And they're close to it, and they need those kinds of services and businesses. Am I hopeful that we'll get better businesses? Sure. But if we continue to have an unequitable distribution of these resource centers and deeply affordable housing in our neighborhoods, we're not going to get better than a dollar store. And that's the truth. There are a few downfalls of this inequity, and it affects our schools, it affects funding for our schools. We care about our property values because that's what funds schools in this state. And the more that outside forces push down our property values is the less school funding we get. People move out of the area. They're talking about closing grade schools in my area, and that's not a good idea. We have to have this. Now, I know that structurally we've got zoning and other things in place that prevent us from doing it, but we need to look and think about other ways that we can raise taxes in other parts of the city that don't have these encumbrances to help pay for the benefits of our side of town. Thank you.
Next will be Cindy Cromer, followed by George Chapman, and then Jen Colby. Cindy is here in person.
Well, after watching people for a couple of hours, I'm not sure how close to get to this microphone to make the thing effective. So my name is Cindy Cromer. Early in March of 2020, ahead of other people, I started wearing a mask. Almost immediately, I realized that I didn't need my allergy medication anymore. Good. I had plenty of other things to worry about besides my allergies at the time. By December of 2020, I still had medication in the bottle when it reached the expiration date. You're asking, where is she going with this story? It's been a long night. As always, I'm going to land use because in December of 2020, when you tabled the modifications for the RMF 30, that's when my medication expired. When this happens, I ask a pharmacist about the consequences, and he or she says that the medication won't be affected. I worry about the possibility that the medication will actually become something harmful as it deteriorates. Either way, less effective or harmful, it's not going to help me, and it could hurt me. The RMF 30 modifications initiated in the Biskupski administration in 2017 were always a bad idea because of their predictable impact on existing housing, which is generally less expensive to rent or own than any housing except housing which is built with subsidies. Now we know, you know, from the Thriving Study, what I knew in 2017, that people are being displaced. There is nowhere to go. The last tenants who left my rentals to buy a house moved 4 years ago. Like my expired medication, the RMF 30 modifications will either not deliver as expected or actually cause harm to the people who can least afford to be displaced. I have lived in the area zoned RMF 30 for almost 50 years. I have owned properties now zoned to RMF 30 for over 40 years. I have done the math.
Time.
Thank you.
Next will be George Chapman, followed by Jen Colby. George, you are unmuted.
I apologize for adding to this long night, and I agree with Cindy Cromer. But on a separate issue, please, instead of paying for surveys or consultants and not spending on projects and actual solutions, it doesn't solve the problem. And it's one of the reasons why the government of Puerto Rico is called full of rot. So I'm asking you to do the projects that you promised in Miller Park and in other parks. You shouldn't need surveys or consultants if you're really representing the citizens and voters and business owners. Please stop spending all of the money on consultants instead of projects. In Miller Park, the CIP funds you agreed to were spent on a consultant to the point that this city doesn't have funds to do the job, and that's wrong. So I'm asking you to take care of that CIP. And I urge you again to ensure that the library board considers appointing a library director from Salt Lake City, not some other city, that is fair and appropriate to this city's efforts to fight systemic sexism and racism. And again, is the inland port still stopping the rerouting of trains away from the west side of Salt Lake City? That should be the top story of the day. It's lost. Nobody seems to know. Please answer that question. It's important for Salt Lake City and the west side. Thank you for listening, and have a rest of your good night.
Next will be Jen Colby, who is in person.
Jen Colby, District 4, and please don't lump District 4 in the east side. We already host TOSA. We have many drug treatment facilities. We're usually quite welcoming. We have a lot of naturally affordable housing. We're not the same. Anyway, tonight I'm here to speak about the proposed RMF 30 shared housing and parking ordinances, which I don't think are ready for adoption given rapidly changing circumstances and major flaws. I want to focus on parking here. Among other problems, the standards seem arbitrary and capricious with no local studies or data to justify them that I could find. The contexts are too generic. There's plenty of places where there's far too much parking. There's other places there's far too little, but for context is inadequate. I agree that the geometry of cars is incompatible with thriving, healthy cities. Excess car parking, especially flat surface parking, is an expensive, financially disastrous, city-killing use of high-value land on or off street. However, there's a basic flaw in putting the parking reduction cart before the fully multimodal transportation network horse. Cars don't magically go away just because you reduce parking requirements. Until car-free or car-low living is a safe, practical, and highly efficient choice for most people, cars will remain an expensive necessity for all who can afford them. How many of you drove here tonight? It's a perfect day for biking, and mine is the only one outside. The average Salt Lake household has 2.2 cars. That won't change until we properly redesign the streets. Transit ridership is still down substantially, and 15-minute headways are not adequate to anyone who actually uses transit. I'm happy to see that bicycle parking is now included, but requirements are too low and non-specific. I run errands by bicycle and cargo bike, and the lack of bike racks is a major problem, but we need covered, secure, ample parking, including for cargo bikes. Decades ago, the Netherlands was rapidly headed down the car-dependent path of unfreedom, similar to what happened in the USA, but then activists helped change that to comprehensive multimodal sustainable safety design. Please go on a study tour. Until we fix the streets, we aren't going to get this right. If Mayor Ana Hidalgo can transform Paris in 5 years, surely our mayors could have done so over the past 20 years since I have lived here. Sadly, not so. Thank you.
And next we will hear from Jason Seaton. Jason, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Recently, I was looking up the information for the bond for public parks, and I went to I used the QR code to take me to the site where all the different parks are listed and the budgets for those parks. The one that was not in that list was the Pioneer Park. And I'm not sure why that isn't. Maybe someone can give me an answer later, but I wanted to look into this and find out, but I'm not finding that information. So if we could make sure that that's available, that'd be great. Thank you.
And that was the final registered comment this evening.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. We're at item E of our agenda. New business is regarding a resolution for the annexation at approximately 2200 West between 2800 North and 3300 North. So I will look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the council accept a petition to annex property located at approximately 2200 West between 2800 North to 3300 North and the Jordan River for further consideration.
Second.
Right, I have a motion by Councilmember Fowler, seconded by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call this. Councilmember Petro,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
Councilmember Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that motion passes. We are now at unfinished business items F1 regarding an ordinance, which is new deferral for emergency loan program repayment. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance approving the deferral of emergency loan programs to December 31st, 2024, along with the following intent.
Oh.
What?
Sorry. Keep going.
Along with the following intent, legislative intent, that the new deferrals to the end of 2024 will be offered as an opt-in, opt process for each borrower rather than occurring automatically, that the discount scale be reflected current interest rates be offered to borrowers who are able to repay before the end of 2024, and that by March 1st, 2023, the Department of Economic Development's proposal criteria and process for borrowers that might not have had an alternative to loan forgiveness or write-off.
And now I will second.
Right. So I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and seconded by Councilmember Fowler. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and that passes. Next item is F2 regarding an ordinance, which is for the placement of small cell wireless in the public way. I'll look for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance regarding the placement of small wireless facilities in the public way.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Petro, seconded by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Dugan.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and that motion passes. This brings us to section G, which is the portion, which is the consent portion of our agenda. I will look for a motion.
Move for approval. Except for item 1. Except for item 1.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Wharton and seconded by Councilmember Fowler. So I am going to roll call this. Councilmember Petro.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Wharton.
Yes.
Fowler.
Yes.
Pui.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and that passes. And this concludes our formal city council meeting. The council's formal meeting now stands adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night. Adios, amigos.